Welcome back, everyone, to the Below Average Joe's MMA Podcast, episode 171. It's a beautiful Friday, January 14th, 2022.
My mom's birthday.
Oh, happy birthday to Dominic's mom. I know her name,
Yes.
but I'm just not saying it. I don't know.
Privacy policy.
Yeah, privacy, I guess. But happy birthday to Dominic's mom.
Yes.
Now, Dominic, I know you're probably celebrating right now on this Friday,
As you can tell, yes.
For her birthday, but there might be some celebration for other reasons.
Okay.
Perhaps maybe an addition to the YouTube channel.
Well, our YouTube channel?
The very one. And if you're listening to this and you're like, wait a minute, I didn't know you guys had a YouTube channel, or, oh, I'm not subscribed to that, you might want to go check.
Yeah, go on over.
Because your favorite MMA guys just got a little more dangerous.
Oh, yeah.
And that's because we're kind of betting experts now.
Oof, that's a bold word there, Cotton.
Yeah, do I need to put a disclaimer on that?
Well, if you recall, yesterday we are the below average bettors now, guys.
Yeah,
yes.
So we did start our very own betting show called The Nosebleeds.
Yes.
We debuted it yesterday. So if you haven't checked it out, please go give it a listen. Let us know your thoughts. It is going to live exclusively on YouTube. So apologies to those on our audio platforms.
Yeah.
But
come on over.
But just come on over. Give
Hit
it a
that
subscribe.
sub button. Yep.
Give it a watch. And then you can go back to listening to us on.
Yeah. What? You're good.
You can go back to listening to us on your audio platforms for the podcast.
Exactly.
Yeah, but Dominic, now that it is celebratory times, I'm curious how you're feeling on this very Friday.
I'm feeling joy. My heart is happy, as Michael Scott once said on The Office. And, again, we've already talked about it, and we've had these sobby intros and outros about how grateful we are for this show, this platform, our audience. But here I am again saying I just want to thank everyone, right, for us to we have that momentum and hype to branch out and continue trying new forms of content. This isn't the only thing that, we're working on. It's just the most recent, most immediate thing you guys are going to see change. So 2022 again is the year of the Joes, as I keep saying to Noah, and we're really just so excited to have all you with us and all the new people coming in droves, in waves. It's awesome, man. What a time to be a part of the Joey community. I'm very happy. How are you feeling, my friend?
I'm scared.
Oh.
We have 18 fights to go over.
Yeah, we really don't have time for this small talk.
But I do have to say one thing before we get into them.
Okay.
And that is that I just want to make it clear to everybody, nothing with the podcast is changing.
Correct.
The only thing that's changing with the podcast is that now you'll see the betting odds on the ticker and on our headlines. Instead of doing those cheesy-ass headlines I've been doing for a few months, that was simply a placeholder for when we would kind of unleash.
The inevitable. Yeah.
Call us Thanos. I keep using that. I gotta stop.
You do.
I gotta stop with the MCU's shit. All right. I finished my rewatch weeks ago. It's in the past.
It's done. Yeah.
But Dominic, the gloves are coming off. Let's raw dog these fight announcements right now.
Well, Raw Dog is fighting later, but anyway, I'm going to be honest with you, real quick before we start going. I've never been more terrified to have a list of fights in front of me that we have to go over, because this is 4 weeks in the making since we've done fight announcements.
And even if let's say we were doing this on a weekly basis, I mean, I tried to cut out fights, man.
They're all great. There's a lot of great fights.
I mean, if we would have been doing weekly episodes still, if there was still weekly fights to talk about, there would have been a lot of fight announcements on each episode probably.
Yeah.
I mean, they've just been cranking them out, especially post-holidays. It's just gotten nuts. But in order to kind of, keep things the time, of the essence, I'm going to go card by card.
Yeah, that's the best way to do it.
And we'll talk and we'll address the fights that matter that got added, and then we'll just kind of touch on what we want to talk about for each one of those. So let's start UFC 271. There's only one for this card, but it's a big one. the biggest of ones, I guess.
Literally, yes.
Yeah, February 12th, Derrick Lewis, who, yes, he just won the last main event we saw in 2021.
Yeah.
He's already booked again, and he's still fighting backwards, Dominic. He's going up against the god of the shoeies himself, Tuivasa. Dominic, I mean, these are two of the fans' favorite heavyweights going mano a mano. Someone's got to lose here. Is that the worst part of this fight?
Well, not only lose, I think someone's going to crumble onto the canvas, if I'm being honest. I'll tell you what, Noah. Before this, the most shocking fight announcements I think we had discussed on this show was Casey Kenny, Dominic Cruz. This one's damn close.
Gives
it
a run for its money, for sure.
Yeah, and even though both guys are obviously ranked here, it was just Derrick Lewis had that fight back against Chris Daukaus, looked great, set the knockout record. Okay, he's going to get Stipe, the loser of Ngannou, gone in next week. Nope, we're going to fight fan favorite Tai Tuivasa, ranked number 11, who just got back into the rankings. Two fan favorite fighters. It sucks for us as fans that somebody has to lose this fight.
I think this is such a huge opportunity for Tai Tuivasa.
Oh, and massive.
This might be straying too close to the sun. I don't know. When you have two guys like this who both basically depend on the power in their hands to get a fight done and done early, there's only one way this fight can really go, right?
Yes, unless it's Lewis versus Ngannou part 1.
Anyways, let's move on to February 19th. We got two for this card that got added, Dominic. Rafael dos Anjos versus Rafael Fiziev, the battle for the best Rafael in the UFC.
Who's it going to be?
And Johnny Walker versus Jamahal Hill. Anything stand out about either one of those to you?
I mean, the battle of Rafaels is going to be awesome. I think that's, your seasoned veteran, former world champion, competed at 2 weight classes versus, essentially the biggest prospect. We talked about it, I guess it's last Wednesday, kind of, sort of. Rafael Fiziev, we're all super high on, Noah's biggest prospect in this division for 2022. But this is a big jump, a big test. He's passed every test so far, but this one, you know what Dana says about RDA, right? If you can beat him, you are a legitimate threat, a legitimate, future potential in this division. Can't wait for that fight. And obviously Walker Hill is super fun, but to me, out of those two, battle of Rafaels is taking the cake.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen Fiziev be tested. Bobby Green took that man to the brink. Mm-hmm. So RDA may not be the guy he was when he held the lightweight title, but he ain't far from it. And I think that still rings true what Dana said. If you can beat RDA, then you can really compete with the top of the division.
100%.
And based on this announcement, this announcement came after I had kind of predicted Fiziev to be the guy of that back crop, that 11 through 15 prospects, to make the biggest jump. And so far, looking like that might be the case. Now he's got to win, but what an opportunity to get right away while you got guys like Saryukin fighting Joel Alvarez, I think. So you got the prospects matched up against one another. He seems to be the one that's kind of stood out the most up to this point.
Yeah, it's kind of like he got that fight against the other prospect in Rydell, passed it. Let's feed him to the wolves here now.
True. And Johnny Walker versus Jamahal Hill is a lot of fun. Jamahal Hill coming off of that just fantastic knockout of Jimmy Crute. Johnny Walker coming off of one of the most disappointing fights of the year.
Yeah.
But one that he lost. So, right? He did lose that fight.
He lost. I know, it's hard to recall. Was there a winner in that fight?
I almost said he won, but because of that, Johnny Walker's kind of in need of something, man. He needs something. He is essentially on life support right now. Not in like any sense of he's going to get cut if he loses or something, but he still has some intrigue to him right now. There's still some hope that this guy can really put it together and maybe reach the top of the division. But
I agree.
If he loses again here, and it's not an easy fight, Jamahal Hill showing that as such, maybe that's done and done from the rest of his career,
Yeah, that once high ceiling just may not be there anymore. And for Hill, the complete opposite if he can get the win.
Yeah. A week later, February 26th, we got two more, a bit more under key, a bit low key fights compared to a lot that we're talking about. Heavyweight Jairzinho Rozenstruik going up against Marcin Tybura. Tybura getting another chance to move forward coming off that loss to Volkov. He ends up getting equally as beneficial matchup for him, I guess, in terms of stakes. And then you also have Ryan Spann welcoming Jan Cutelaba, who just recently got his first ranking of his UFC career. He's now number 15 at light heavyweight. Dominic, for me, I'm kind of shocked Cutelaba's a ranked fighter now. He's good.
Yeah.
He's very aggressive, obviously. Had some interesting moments. And he's hung around, he's hung with some good fighters, but hasn't really put the wins together, I think, to make him a top 15. He goes up against Ryan Spann, who's really looking to bounce back from that pretty one-sided loss to Anthony Smith. I look for Spann to kind of dominate this matchup, but, maybe Cutelaba's got an ace up his sleeve. I don't know.
Yeah, and personally for me, I'm liking this Rozenstruik versus Tybura matchup because to me, that fight that Rozenstruik had against Augusto Sakai, that was the performance we needed to see from him after two back-to-back losses that he had. It wasn't him going in there recklessly just knocking someone out that he started his UFC career with. He was patient. He picked his shots, but he struck when he saw the opportunities. Finished that fight with 1 second left in the first round, but he looked so good, so precise and powerful. That's the Rozenstruik that I want to see moving forward. And Tybura is that grinded out style of fighter. So two total opposites here. That's a big fight.
Let's talk about UFC 272. A lot of shakeup with the pay-per-views.
Yeah, that's true.
And we won't really touch on that now. We'll maybe touch on that when we get to UFC 273. But 3 fights added to this one. Kevin Holland making his debut at welterweight. He's been kind of rumored to do so.
Yeah.
Finally making the drop to go up against Alex Oliveira. An interesting matchup.
That's a fun fight. Yeah.
Marina Rodriguez versus Yan Xiaonan. This is likely, dare I say, a potential number 1 contender fight, depending on kind of...
especially for Marina.
That might be a bit too soon, but Marina for sure.
Yeah.
Because Rose and Carla is likely next, but who knows with Zhang Weili and Joanna.
Yeah.
But Marina Rodriguez is a big fight for her, and obviously the biggest fight of the bunch is that main event. At least we're assuming it's the main event, as it's no title on the line, but the star power reigns supreme, and that's because Colby Covington goes up against Jorge Masvidal, the former teammates turned rivals, Dominic. Mm-hmm. So out of these 3 fights, which one sticks out to you the most?
Come on. I mean, hey, funny enough, this one just got announced. We're recording this on, Wednesday night? It got announced yesterday, on Tuesday.
Yeah, hot off the presses.
Hot off the presses for us compared to all these other ones anyways. But this is a great fight. This is the fight to make. Colby's coming off of the loss and the rematch to Kamaru Usman. Masvidal's on a 2-fight losing streak, both to Usman. Former teammates, former friends, former roommates. No, these gentlemen lived in the same place. You and I have been roommates for years. We get that bond. So could you imagine basically us two going out and fighting? That's what we're getting here, folks. Yeah. This is the equivalent of the Battle of the Joeys. I'm just saying. But seriously, man, this is an amazing fight. You obviously have the insane pace and grappling and ever-improving striking of Colby Covington. Masvidal, street Jesus, is that what he calls himself, right? Street Jesus. Baptizing people. He's got the power. I think he's going to really come into this fight with a different hunger that we haven't seen from him in a while, looking to right the ship. He's on that tail end of his career. He knows if he wants to get back to a title fight, you got to make a statement here against Colby Covington. This is a massive fight, one of the biggest fights that's been booked so far for 2022.
This fight has to answer any and all questions that are or have been had over the last few months, as far as maybe it was Jorge's star power dwindling a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I mean, yes, Colby Covington, I think, has proven that he's, there's something to his shtick. There's some value to it, I think, especially if you get him in the right matchup. I think him and Usman did pretty good business together. And, you get this matchup. There's the stories already put into place. Like you said, roommates turned rivals, the teammates turned rivals. And as far as the matchup itself goes, I think most people assume that Colby Covington is just going to steamroll Jorge Masvidal. And I don't really understand where this kind of notion came in that Jorge Masvidal is like not actually good.
Right, right.
I mean, I understand that his explosion into the mainstream, into the star he is now, came with wins over guys like Ben Askren and, well, I guess Darren Till and Nate Diaz. Yeah. And, maybe those wins haven't aged the best, I guess. I still think they're phenomenal wins in the fashion that they happened.
Yes.
But he was doing this before that, too. I mean, not necessarily not in the same fashion, but I look back to even a loss. Like he had a fight against Damian Maia back at like UFC 211.
Yeah.
And he nearly won that fight. And Damian Maia like had his back at multiple points for extended periods, and he fought off every submission attempt. I mean, who does that to a guy like Damian Maia? So
no one.
I will say Colby Covington is a tough matchup. You saw Usman and Colby they're not the same type of fighter, but both wrestling heavy, at least in their, I guess, Usman's kind of become more well-rounded, but Colby definitely going to lean on that wrestling and also the pace that he puts on. But Masvidal's always been great with his conditioning. That won't be a problem. But if he can stay off his back, man, I mean, the striking matchup's interesting because Colby...
It is.
Colby nearly got put away a couple times in that last Usman fight. Could really see that. Masvidal's got, I would like to think, has a little bit more power than Usman. I don't know, maybe not.
Yeah.
But it's a phenomenal fight. I can't say anything about it. I was wondering if the UFC would really commit to putting this in a main event slot. It felt like Masvidal he's only fought twice in the last, a year and a half, and both were title fights to Usman. One was a really boring fight that he did step up and take on a week's notice, but then didn't fight again until he got a rematch months later, and he got knocked out cold. So I was wondering if maybe his star power had already reached its peak, and while maybe it still has, this is the biggest fight you can make that's not involving Conor McGregor for a title. Yeah. And Dominic, we may not be done with this card. I think a rumor on the street, Dominic.
Dude.
They got to do Dustin Poirier versus Nate Diaz in the co-main event, right?
Dude, do you know how badass that would be? Because they would make it 5 rounds as a co-main event, obviously. But, to have 2 huge non-title fights like that fans are salivating at the mouth to see, that is a very, very smart business move. A miss, in my opinion, if the UFC does not capitalize on that main event, co-main event combination. Oh my gosh, if they do that, woo! Sign me up.
Come on, boys. Put the politics aside. Let the man
You got to
fight.
do it.
Who cares if he goes and boxes Jake Paul after? Just fucking give us the fight, damn it.
Yeah. You're going to get the pay-per-views on this one. Don't worry. So, yeah.
So now we're going to shift gears.
Oh, shit. I forgot this was on here.
We're going to move into a different promotion, that being Eagle FC, Dominic. I think the fans have forgotten a little bit. I think our audience has forgotten our relationship with Eagle FC because it's kind of 180 depending on the episodes you've listened to.
Yeah, it's about to do it again.
We started with the announcement of Tyrone Spong versus Bigfoot Silva. Hated it. Questioned if Khabib was even worthy of being in his position. Right. Not exactly. It's a little dramatic. But we definitely were questioning, what kind of promoter he was going to be. Then Bigfoot Silva falls out. I forget who they replaced him with now, but it was a good fight, much better.
Evenly matched.
Much more evenly matched. I think it was Sergey Karatonov. Maybe.
Yeah, another good boxer, combat fighter. Yeah.
Anyways, then we're like, you know what? And they signed Kevin Lee.
Yes.
Adding a 165-pound division. We're like, you know what?
Things are looking up.
UFC might be the best company in the world. And, and they're making good use of that 165-pound division, Dom, because they are letting Kevin Lee make his debut against the Season 1 winner of The Ultimate Fighter, the OG, Diego the Nightmare Sanchez. That's right. I said Diego the Nightmare Sanchez.
This can't actually happen, right?
There's no way it's going to happen.
It can happen.
No, it's booked. Like, they think it's going to happen.
Florida, if there's ever a time to step up.
I know that we're like kind of taking a jokey slant here, but all jokes aside, is Diego even out of the hospital?
He literally was in hospital for COVID and like ammonia for
he had blood
45
clots.
Days. Yeah. If he's out, it's just recently. Like before he got out and then they signed this fight.
And this fight is booked, by the way, for March
11th.
11th.
Yeah. Florida, come on.
So, Dominic, what's going on here? Because
I don't like this.
I can't tell what to think of Eagle FC. I don't know what to think. They take 2 steps forward and then they take 27 steps back. I don't understand what's going on here.
Yeah, this is weird to me, man. I don't understand the like who wants to see this? No one. I've not seen one positive thing about this. As excited as we were, Kevin Lee, a fresh start, Eagle FC, Habib, he's like friends with Habib all of a sudden, who was his biggest rival and he always wanted to fight him. They start the 165-pound division, who Kevin Lee has been the biggest advocate for years, and Habib, so it's a perfect tandem. Then you're telling me you're going to make his debut fight against Diego Sanchez? Is he 40? He's got to be 40 or older by now at this point. He's been losing fights left and right. He's literally been in a severe state of illness in the hospital for almost 2 full months. And he just got out recently, like at the end of 2021. And we're going to book him for a fight in 3 months against a still in his prime fighter in Kevin Lee. And especially at 165 pounds, where we've never seen Kevin Lee fight before, but you would imagine it's got to be that sweet spot for him. I don't like this at all. It's not a good look. It's not a good move. I know there's not like a ton of 165-pound fighters out there, but there are a ton that would be willing to either cut an extra 5 pounds or gain an extra 10 and step in for a huge opportunity against Kevin Lee here in America when Eagle FC coming over for their shows. There's got to be another way.
I mean, Diego Sanchez, even if you go before the COVID, less than a year ago, he was being cut by the UFC because of his, quite frankly, strange behavior and his snake oil salesman of a coach, Joshua Fabia, who wasn't much of a coach, and everything looked so dim then. Yes, I'm happy Diego kind of was able to get out of that, what seemed like toxic relationship, but then he finds himself hospitalized with very serious illness and does not handle it very well. Blood clots, apparently very bad. And now he's signed to fight Kevin Lee, who, despite even I think the biggest detractors of Kevin Lee would still say he's a UFC caliber talent. I mean,
yes, 100%.
A top UFC caliber talent. The best you can say about Diego Sanchez is maybe to fight with Cerrone would have been fun.
Yeah, that was true. That's what was rumored to happen.
Diego Sanchez is, of course, a legend. The guy is, I just said, the season 1,
the
very first winner of The Ultimate Fighter. He fought for the title back then against BJ Penn. He has given everything to the sport.
Everything.
And he deserves, like, literally put a statue of that man outside of the Apex or something.
Yeah.
This is not doing him any favors.
No.
Someone needs to protect him from himself. State of Florida, once again, they're clowns. They are clowns. Whoever is approving these fights, the commission, they are, it's a clown show. And, I mean, the rumor was that that's how Bigfoot Silva got taken off the card, was that they were like, he's in no shape to compete.
If you're doing that for that fight, you need to do it for this one.
What shape was Bigfoot Silva in that he wasn't cleared?
Yeah.
If that's the case, I don't know. It's I want to be on board with Eagle FC, and then they do this, and like this makes me not want to watch this card like at all.
Yeah. I hope, again, we're 2 months out. Hopefully something comes along. Florida will step in, call this off. And I still, don't get me wrong, I want to see Kevin Lee fight. I want to see how he does with Eagle FC. I want to see the performance at 165 pounds in his perfect spot. But this right here, if he were to go out and just dismantle Diego Sanchez, that tells me nothing. That gives me nothing about how high he could still climb in the prime of his career.
Yeah, it just makes me sad.
Yeah.
And on the flip end, I hope in the next couple months that find something else for Diego Sanchez to do. But I mean, just give the this guy's given so much, and I'm tired of people taking advantage of this kid. I mean, kid, like he's older than me. I'm tired of people taking advantage of him. It's been this poor guy. It feels like he just can't get out of, like, he's I don't know if he's a little easily led astray or whatever, but it seems like whether it's the fact that he's taken a lot of dangerous fights over the years and putting his body through hell and for these checks that, you know, who knows, maybe he wasn't making the best money. I don't know. To now he's being booked with a fight that's essentially he's being put in there to get destroyed.
Yeah.
It makes me sad.
There's really not one checkbox that you can justify to me for this fight to make sense. There's not one.
No, I'm not giving it any more time. I'm moving on. The next night.
Oh, I'm about to get excited.
I'll have a couple.
You already know,
fights
Noah.
Added to that card. Marlon Moraes versus Song Yadong, and Sadiq Youssef versus Alex Caceres. Dominic, I can already tell which fight you're going to talk about. Super Sadiq is back. Are you excited?
Oh, man, it's been a long time coming since my man Sadiq Youssef has been in the octagon. I like the time away. I'll be curious to see the improvements he's made, the physique he's still in. I love this guy. I still think he has huge upside in this awesome featherweight division. Alex Caceres just earned his way back into the rankings at number 15, a career resurgence like we've been seeing a few recently, but Alex Caceres is right there in it now. He's really shown an ever-improving skill set, even after all the fights he's been in. Not an easy fight by any means for Youssef, but you've got the newer up-and-comer, the seasoned veteran who's still relatively young and making one last push. I love everything about that fight, truthfully. I do.
Yeah, for Marlon Moraes, this has got to be the one last chance, right?
Yeah, this is a big one.
And to go up against Song Yadong, I mean, it's a dangerous opponent. It's a very dangerous opponent. And, you know, maybe it is. I think it is the kind of, if Marlon Moraes is going to remain in the UFC, this is kind of the proper next fight for him.
Yeah.
I would say, I mean, maybe you could justify having him fight outside the top 15, but he's still ranked, and it's just like, I don't know. I think Song Yadong is a dangerous opponent, but still someone who's really developing that skill set.
He's vulnerable. Yeah.
He's really trying to figure out kind of who he is as a fighter, coming into his own. He's still so young.
I think he's 23. That's crazy.
He's younger than us.
Yeah.
So for Marlon Moraes, you know, he looked so good early against Merab. But then, as time and time again has been the case with Marlon Moraes, you get out of that. He might be the best first-round fighter in the entire company, even still.
Yeah.
But you go outside that first round, and he's
in trouble.
Is in trouble.
That fight with Merab, by the way, just shout out again because it was insane. Anyway.
2 weeks later, Dominic, March 26th.
Wait, where's this event? Tell
This is an interesting one in Cebus, IO. Columbus, it's official. We will be in attendance.
It is official now. Yep, that's
more
true.
detail. Well, wait a minute.
Let's knock. Everybody knock if you're watching right now.
But we got a couple good fights added to this card, Dominic. Asgar Askarov going up against Kaikar France. Likely some sort of a title eliminator there, I would like to think.
Yeah.
And then Joanne Wood and Alexa Grasso, who we hadn't seen, who would be over a year at this point, will clash. So, Dominic, I think the big standout for me, a chance at redemption.
That's right. It's a storybook right here.
For not just Joanne Wood, who's coming off a loss or two in her last couple, but also for my co-host Dominic Salee. Yes. If you guys are longtime listeners, you might know UFC 203, the last time me and Dominic were in attendance at a UFC event, one Joanne Calderwood at the time opened that pay-per-view against a young whippersnapper named Jessica Andrade.
Yeah.
And Dominic said he was all about Joanne Calderwood and said
the infamous words.
Said she's never been taken down in her career. And I think 20 seconds later, she was taken down twice.
And I contemplated my entire existence.
So this is a chance at redemption for Joanne Wood in the state of Ohio and for Dominic. I don't think she has to worry about Alexa Grasso taking her down, but Alexa Grasso, even though it's been a year, she looked damn good against Macy Barber, and she seems poised to kind of make a push into the top of the division.
Yeah, guys, for what it's worth here, Joanne Wood coming off of that TKO loss to Taylor Santos, who's not really necessarily known for her striking. I mean, she's a super well-rounded fighter, don't get me wrong. But Joanne had the striking advantage, we at least thought, going into that fight. Here, Alexa Grasso, Noah, she's known for one thing, and it's her crisp, technical boxing. So very much excited for that one. And Askar Askarov, Kaikar France, a potential number one contender fight, as you mentioned, at flyweight. It could be really dull. It could be super damn fun and exciting. But for Kai, he's coming off the biggest win of his career against Cody Garbrandt. Askar Askarov, a bit of a layoff here, coming off the win against Joseph Benavidez, one in which he dominated for 3 straight rounds. Big test for Kai, but if he wins, I think he is right there for a title. And for Askar, he's been there in the weights for a title, but he's had the weight misses. He's had the inactivity. So this is a big fight for him that really he has to win.
Yeah, for Kaikar France, I mean, he's just got to stay off his back. He cannot let himself get taken down. And Askar Askarov, the best wrestler in this division, Kaikar France, I'm hoping to see some improvement in that takedown defense, or else it could be a long night.
That's true.
UFC 273, this is where things get interesting. A lot of shakeup.
Yes.
Both title fights that we're about to talk about were originally UFC 272, and then literally 48. This was all within the last week, by the way. Within 24 hours, we lost one of our 2 in the main event.
Yep.
There was a replacement, and then both fights got moved to the next month's pay-per-view. So just a lot going on. But a few fights to talk about. So we got Mackenzie Dern versus Tisha Torres. This one came
out. Oh, shit. I forgot about this.
Irene Aldana versus Aspen Ladd. So Aspen Ladd going back to bantamweight.
Mm-hmm.
And then the UFC bantamweight title will finally be decided, we hope, as Aljamain Sterling looks to defend against the interim champion, Petr Yan. And the main event, men's featherweight title, Alexander Volkanovski will not defend against Max Holloway. He is unfortunately out. But in steps Chan Sung Jung, the Korean zombie. Dominic, our fears came true. We talked about this on Wednesday's episode.
Yep.
And sure enough, before the episode posted, they had announced who would be in that fight. So, Dominic, we got 2 title fights, a couple others here that are definitely worth talking about. But I guess if I want to start any sort of discussion about these fights, I would just simply ask, did the UFC make the right call in Chan Sung Jung? And out of these 2 title fights, which one maybe is more exciting to you right now?
Yeah, Noah, for me, it's got to be the featherweight title bout here. Alexander Volkanovski, Chan Sung Jung, the Korean zombie. I don't think they steered in the wrong direction, per se. Again, Zombie's coming off that win against Dan Ige in a performance that he flipped a switch, right? He showcased skills that we weren't used to seeing. We're so used to Zombie being in these firefights, hence the name Korean Zombie, where he just never backs down. He keeps pressing forward. In that one, he was very strategic, technical, again, used a lot of that grappling to get a 5-round decision win. But to me, that shows a lot, because to beat Alexander Volkanovski, you have to be damn near perfect. You really do. So for Chan Sung Jung to have that performance says a lot to me coming into this title fight here in a few months. It's not necessarily, again, the wrong move, because you look at the rest of this division. You've got Max, who's injured, right? Ortega just lost to Volk. Yair just lost to Holloway. You do have Josh Emmett. He's on that 4-fight win streak. coming off that most recent win, also against Dan Ige. But I think that long layoff and the injury really played a factor in him not being an option potentially here for the UFC. And then you could have the potential winner of the fight we're going to preview later in this show, Calvin Kattar and Giga Chikadze. And, especially for Giga, because if he were to win against Kattar, he would be 8-0 in the UFC, tons of momentum. But nevertheless, I think Zombie was the right call here. If it wasn't Henry Cejudo, which if you listened on Wednesday, you said, or that was the one I was working towards. But I do like this fight. I think it's very enticing. The matchup itself stylistically intrigues me very much.
Yeah, this is the one that I thought should have been the fight. I thought Korean Zombie was the appropriate option. I understand anybody who out there who would say, well, if Giga Chikadze dominates Saturday, he should be next. And I would agree with you, but it seems like the UFC really wanted to get this fight done, just get it made. Did. And because of that, you either take the risk and kind of make it like, okay, whoever wins gets it, but then you're risking the winner. Potentially it's a war, and then there's an injury, layoff. And if Calvin Kattar wins, no disrespect to Calvin Kattar, but is he really a guy that you would put in that position after the loss to Max Holloway a year ago? I think that's still on everybody's brains so much. So because of that, I thought once you weighed all those factors, just go with the Korean Zombie. And that's who they went with. I think it's an intriguing matchup in some ways. I don't necessarily think that the Korean Zombie is going to win this fight, but I do think that he can, almost like in the way Ortega did, and that ended up being my personal fight of the year, force Volkanovski kind of out of his comfort zone, at least at moments in the fight. Even if Volkanovski beats down Korean Zombie, really dissects him, kind of like he did to Ortega, who's to say that, I think Zombie could force at least at moments in this fight, at rounds in this fight, for Volkanovski to have to battle back from some adversity. And that's what I'd just like to see. Volkanovski's one of the most complete talents, but his fights are just much better when he's not allowed to coast to a victory. I mean, he's so talented, he can do that a lot of times. But I definitely think that that's a great matchup. And I still think, though, that the co-main event is probably the title fight I'm just more excited for, and people might be surprised by that because it seems like everybody's kind of ruling this like a foregone conclusion. I mean, considering the way the first fight went, how even though Sterling started out strong, Jan pretty much dominated most of the fight, and then threw a dumb illegal knee and got himself DQ'd. But it just seems like, okay, they'll run it back, and Jan will clearly win. And I'm sure in my head, I've literally on Wednesday, the fight I said I would book in 2022 for this, if I could book one fight, it was Peter Yan versus TJ Dillashaw for the bantamweight title.
Yeah.
Peter Yan doesn't have the bantamweight title, so how could I do that?
Right.
So I'll be curious to see if Sterling can show anything. Could he win?
Yeah.
What the fuck? What would the... I mean, not that he's some huge underdog. Aljamain Sterling this guy would beat Corey Sandhagen back at UFC 250. This guy
and easy.
Guy's a legit talent. A lot of people thought he was going to beat Peter Yan, including yourself, I believe.
Yep.
So it's not out of the realm of possibility for him to show more than he did in the first fight. I'm just curious to see how it goes. Will it be similar? Will it be closer? Will Yan get him out of there early? I think that this fight is pretty massive for the future of the division.
Yes, that is 100% accurate.
And the last one here, Lauren Murphy welcoming Miesha Tate to the women's flyweight division.
This is interesting.
And I guess that's all for the fight announcements. Did you want to talk about it?
No, I mean, I know that Miesha had hinted at it, but I wasn't expecting it to be now. But I guess if you're going to welcome her, why not give her someone who literally just fought Valentina for a title as your first attempt? I mean, I would imagine she makes the weight pretty good. She's not a huge bantamweight. She's kind of said she doesn't like the idea of leaving a division on a loss, but here we are. So I will be curious to see how she performs at that weight class, something we haven't seen. So just a little bit of intrigue there on my end.
I'm having a hard time even getting all that excited for this fight, if I'm being honest. I'll definitely be watching May 14th, and poor Lord, both these women have kind of, I've kind of given them both a hard time as of late, but it's just, anyways, let's move on to ONE FC.
It lives.
The fight announcements are not done, but I felt like this one just needed to be moved over. The canceled ONE X has been reborn. This was the event that was supposed to cap off 2021, ONE FC's 10th anniversary card. Okay, you can stop with the hands now.
I'm just thinking of D-Generation X the whole time.
Did you see that clip of Ben Roethlisberger going around when he was like...
I did. Well, I think you and I both... I don't know if you said
you...
I just didn't remember that ever happening, so it was quite incredible.
I had no memory of it, but I thought it was the funniest thing ever.
I needed it injected into my veins.
Rocking a Johnny Cash t-shirt. Hilarious.
Anyways. ONE FC.
ONE FC. So they had canceled the fight at the end of the year. COVID protocols not really lining up with what they kind of wanted to do for that card. Well, here it is. It's happening on the same day that we'll be in Columbus, Dominic, on March 26th. So,
is it really?
Yeah. So we'll see how it goes in terms of us watching the card live. But
we'll play it through the car speakers.
Somehow this card is even better than the one that got canceled.
Yeah.
We now have 3 title fights and a massive main event. So I'm just going to go from the bottom to the top. Bantamweight title, Bibiano Fernandez defending against John Lineker. The flyweight title, Adriano Moraes. I'm excited to see him back in action. Going up against Yuya Wakamatsu. The women's atomweight title. We just talked about a potential atomweight division being brought into the UFC. Here's a chance for us to look at some of the talent at the top of the atomweight division. Angela Lee looking to defend against Stamp Fairtex. And the special rules MMA / Muay Thai fight between Demetrius Johnson versus Roteng. So Dominic, the 4 fights I just said. Obviously, we don't know a ton about some of these fighters, but, assuming this event actually comes to fruition, what's your kind of excitement level, and maybe which fights specifically are heightening or lowering that excitement?
Well, obviously that special rules fight is super unique, something we've never really seen before, at least, to us domestically. So that's awesome. Demetrius Johnson, one of the best mixed martial artists ever, going up against Roteng, who is one of the best mixed martial artists ever.
Maybe, sorry, not to cut you off, but maybe I should rephrase the discussion here. I mean, you might be answering it as you're talking, but are you on board with doing a fight like this? The special rules, it's MMA, but it's also Muay Thai. It's not, it's a bit of a freak show fight in a way, but maybe it's also just a high class combat sports fight. Like, we don't really know. Are you on board with it?
I am, man. I'm super intrigued to see how this plays out. Again, it's something that we don't really see over here in the domestic MMA organizations. So I think that's super exciting. Again, one of the best MMA talents ever, one of the best Muay Thai talents ever. One round is one way, one round another. Is it 4 rounds total, right? So they get 2 of each rule set. So that's super exciting. But also, for what it's worth, Angela Lee is someone that I hear about all the time, especially when the atomweight division gets passed around. For those that follow Anatomy of a Fighter, he does great documentary productions on YouTube. He's doing a series with her right now where he kind of follows a day in the life type deal. So this is someone that I'm starting to catch on to and keep an eye on, because even when I was with Overtime Heroics, I would constantly hear about her and articles being written and interviews being sent out. So being able to kind of watch her at this big event and defend her title once more, that is really exciting to me.
Yeah, the main event, I'm on board with it. If this was the UFC doing something like this, I don't know if I would be as into it, but since ONE has done such a great job of kind of mixing and matching on their cards, it's not all MMA. Sometimes you do have Muay Thai fights and kickboxing fights, and I don't know. I think it freshens up cards sometimes when you have those different rule sets brought in. And now that you have this kind of freak show, this Frankenstein's monster of a clash, but yet you have two of the most technically gifted fighters of their respective brand of combat sports, and this might end up being like a fight for the ages.
Yes.
Dominic. I mean, Demetrius Johnson versus Rotang. I mean, it's two of the best to ever do it. And, this is the kind of fight that I just love to see for Demetrius Johnson. I know some people, the ones that are a little more pessimistic on it, aren't very happy that this is kind of how he's being used. But, he lost to Adriano Moraes, got knocked out by him. And I think that simply throwing him back into another title opportunity or, another high-profiled but ultimately underwhelming title eliminator, I don't know if it really does him to serve. I mean, they paid a lot of money to get him over there.
Yeah.
Fights like this are going to pay off, I think.
Yeah, this is a huge fight for him.
But also, for what it's worth, Adriano Moraes being on this card and defending, I'm very excited. It's a shame that we have not seen him since he knocked out Demetrius Johnson. Man, you got to capitalize on that kind of shit,
Well, I remember when that happened that night, MMA was just, or MMA. Well, yeah, the sport of MMA, but Twitter and everything was just on fire. People were stunned, shocked. Oh my gosh, Demetrius Johnson just lost his belt. Oh my gosh, he just got knocked out cold. So yeah, that fight's been a long time ago since that happened. That was on TNT Network too.
April.
Yeah. So man, they needed to capitalize on it. I know stuff's been going on over there too. In that Asian market with COVID and everything. But I hope this event successfully comes about. This is going to be a big deal for one.
Now let's move on into UFC Vegas 46.
Say it ain't so.
We got a few fights to talk about here. Obviously, you're going to see the odds on the screen now, but just a reminder, go check out the nosebleeds if you want more of that betting discussion. And we're starting with the main event, Calvin Kattar, Giga, I did say it right. Yes.
Giga.
Damn it.
One day we're going to get it. Until then, all of Giga's fans are going to be in our comments just roasting us. It's
Calvin Kattar versus Giga Chikadze.
There you go.
So, Dominic, I said this in the nosebleeds, but I think it's a great sentiment. Whether you're evaluating this fight by looking at the odds or by the public opinion going in, very clear that people think this is a no-brainer, Giga Chikadze victory. Yeah. So much so that people thought they should hold off on booking Volkanovski Korean Zombie because Chikadze wins. He's 8-0. But I think that just shows, Dominic, that you're really only as good as your last fight because Calvin Kattar, outside of that loss, and I get it, how high profile it was, the first card on ABC and in a main event slot with a former champion.
Yeah.
And Max Holloway, and you get beat down 50-42, 50-43. That is a hard pill to swallow. But outside of that, he has looked fantastic in the UFC his whole career. Remember Jeremy Stevens, the very first card, UFC 249 in the COVID era? The elbows when he knocked out.
Yeah, that's true.
He knocked out Jeremy Stevens with a fucking elbow. I mean, just nasty stuff. This dude is a killer. And that one fight is just put the stigma on him as if he's some sort of scrub. And I am not here for it.
Yeah.
So, Dominic, I'm curious if you does your thoughts on the matchup sort of align with mine and maybe just go in more to kind of where Kattar sort of excels in this matchup? Where can he really find a route to victory here?
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. And again, as we kind of stated on the nosebleeds, plus 200, 2-1 underdog, it is surprising, but not at the same time, kind of toward the sentiment that Noah made. But for Kattar, he is a savage, man. He's prone to going to war and being able to last. This dude does not get finished, people. He's either going to go out there and bring it to you, or he's going to die trying to, if you're beating him. And, this is one where it's Giga's been tested his past two fights, his two biggest tests, because he started his UFC career 4 wins, but they were decisions. There was a split sprinkled in there. But since he's on 3 straight TKO victories, including Cub Swanson, including Edson Barboza. However, and because Barboza is a great striker, that was a fantastic matchup, main event wise, between Chikadze and Barboza going in. Calvin is a completely different striker than anyone that Giga has faced thus far, being that he is a primarily dominant boxer, and he's as crisp and technical as they come. And don't get me wrong, Chikadze is a matchup that Kattar truthfully hasn't really seen. I mean, he got a glimpse of it against Max Holloway, but not as heavy with the kicks and the way in which he moves. Holloway and Chikadze moved completely differently in the terms of their striking. So I think this is going to be a very closely contested bout. I don't foresee a finish coming. I think we're going to have a back and forth technical, I'm going to say a technical brawl, Noah, because I think Kattar is going to have to make it a little bit ugly. I think he's going to have to make Chikadze uncomfortable and force him to make mistakes in order to land the big shots that he needs to potentially get that win. But I think this is a phenomenal first main event of the year. It's a striking delight. But yeah, Kattar is a dog, and he cannot be counted out in this one simply due to his last fight and Chikadze's momentum. You can't overlook him.
Yeah, and I think Chikadze's momentum is worth noting because
yes.
The win over Barboza and even the one over Cub Swanson doesn't get more impressive than that. But I just want to that doesn't paint the full picture of Chikadze's UFC career. Yeah. It's not been all sunshine and rainbows. I mean, yes, he hasn't lost, but he's kind of squeaked by a couple of unremarkable opponents. Even his Contender Series appearance, he squeaked by. He didn't get a contract.
Yeah, that's true.
So while maybe that's just a sign that, well, he's just a vastly improved fighter since then, and that might be true, but maybe Kattar can expose that whatever flaw, whatever was kind of holding back Chikadze from really making that jump into being one of the top fighters in the world, it doesn't mean that he necessarily has just gotten that much better to cover all that up. Mm-hmm. Maybe he's just doing such a good job of avoiding or hiding those flaws that prevented him in the first place. Maybe Calvin Kattar can be the one to kind of expose that again. It's really going to be an interesting fight because, like, you're pretty dead set on, like, I don't see this fight getting a finish. And both these guys are such good finishers, though, at this point, that it's like, but neither guy necessarily. I mean, look at what Kattar went through against Max Holloway.
Yeah.
Never got finished.
Yeah.
Now, is that a sign that he took such a beating that now he ain't going to be able to take the punishment?
True.
It could be a case, but I don't necessarily see that being what's going to happen here. I think Kattar had done a pretty good job through most of his career before that. Yes, he's had some wars. The fight with Shane Burgos back in the day was a really fun back and forth, but he hasn't necessarily taken like a ton of damage in his career.
Yeah.
Besides that fight, and that fight's a career's worth of damage. But
of course,
he's had some pretty flawless performances of his own. So I look to see who takes the center of the octagon more often than the other, because aggression has kind of been a key for both guys. Kattar likes to get in your face, likes to get in the pocket, like you said, use that. What's the boxing? What are they called out there? The new.
Oh, the New England Cartel.
The New England Cartel. He loves to get in the pocket and really
his combinations, man.
Force you on your bike, if you will. Chikadze also uses his aggression, but it's so he can keep throwing those kicks at the body, at the liver. Mm-hmm. Which guy's going to really move forward more often than not? Is Kattar going to be a little hesitant after the beating he took? Is Chikadze, being that he is really on the precipice of a title shot, is he going to be maybe looking a little funny in the light? So
yeah.
It's a damn good main event, though, with a damn good poster to line up for it.
Amen.
The fight that I want to focus on next here, Brandon Royval versus Rogerio Bontorin. This is a fight that's going to go under the radar for a lot of people. But
it is.
And if you are someone that's been listening to this show,
you know
that we are both Brandon Royval, raw dog, ride or dies.
Yes.
He's 2-2 in the UFC, but all 4 fights, none of them go into the judges' scorecards, and he has had moments in all of them.
Yes.
Including the 2 where he won, of course.
Yeah.
And here against Bontorin. Bontorin is a good fighter. He's kind of been on a streak of just tough performances as of late are just tough, behind the scenes stuff. He missed weight in his last fight at bantamweight.
Yeah, that's something to keep an eye on for sure.
Before that, at UFC 259, he was matched up with Kattar, France. A fight he dominated the entire first round. Looked like it was going to be a 10-8.
Yep.
And then in the last 30 seconds, just gets put out cold.
Kattar, France is deadly, man.
Yeah, so Bontorin's looking to really try to, get things back on track. But this is a tough fighter to do that against,
Yeah.
Bontorin seems like the guy that likes to try to keep things calm in the cage, likes to, kind of he likes to really keep things at his pace. But he doesn't do very well when things get a little dicey, when something unexpected happens. He kind of overreacts, and Brandon Royval is all about kind of being fluid inside the octagon and being a bit of a wild man, and I think that's going to be to his benefit here. And Brandon Royval with the win here, right back in the top of things, and for Bontorin a chance to get the biggest win of his career.
Yeah, this fight's interesting, man. I mean, first and foremost, you know how I am about the finishes on here, and being that we haven't had a preview in 4 weeks, I got to just point out right here, right now, these guys have 29 combined wins. 25 of them came via finish. Wow. You would like to think someone is going to get finished in this fight. What's interesting to me is that Royval, submission specialist, Bontorin, submission specialist, but they're always in these super fun fights at the same time. So Royval is definitely more willing to make it ugly, make it gutsy. And on the feet, you'd probably have to lean toward Royval as well, even though he's shown vulnerability, but so has Bontorin, hence the knockout from Kattar, France. So the way that this fight is going to inevitably get to the ground is what really gets me excited, because it might be a wild flurry. We might see some awesome transitionings where someone has the other's back, they slip out the back door, then they take the back. I think this is going to be a super fun fight. We love the flyweights. We love Raw Dog Royval. This is a fight that is going to fly under the radar, as Noah said, but it is so deserving of it. It is the featured bout as of now, barring any changes to the card, and they deserve such a spot. Keep your eyes on this fight, and don't blink, trust me.
And I think to touch on, that's a really good point about the submission styles of these two, because you wouldn't think that they share that trait, that they're both submission specialists, but I think that's because I think Royval tends to hurt his opponents on the feet and finishes them on the ground, while I think with Bontorin, he uses his strength, being that he's a bigger flyweight, to sort of muscle guys to the ground.
Where he uses the grappling.
And then submits them from there. So an interesting battle, because, I could see Bontorin being able to do that to Royval. Royval's a real thin, a smaller
long
frame, while Bontorin's a bit more stocky, a little bit more compact, and it's going to be a fun one. I really look forward to this fight.
Oh, yes.
And let's get into the rest. Only a couple more. We're losing fights left and right, Dom. But
I know.
A couple more to talk about. Katlyn Chookagian and Jennifer Maia, the rematch that nobody asked for, but we're getting anyways. No, that's not to say that this fight doesn't have merit, doesn't have anything interesting about it. It's just, these are two women that both lost very one-sided fashion to the champ, Valentina Shevchenko. Both have really struggled to kind of, carve their, really make themselves kind of a player. They're here. Like, Katlyn Chookagian is kind of right now like a level. It's basically the hierarchy. You got Valentina.
Yep.
Then you go down like 5 steps. You got
maybe 10.
Andrade.
Yeah.
Go down a couple more steps. Katlyn Chookagian. Go down a couple more steps. You got a bunch of other people in there. So
yeah. Good description.
No disrespect. And then we got a lot of really exciting prospects on the way up. But basically my point is that with these two, they had their moment in the sun where they, were in a title fight. But now it's kind of like back to reality. There's not a lot of high-profile bouts for them. And here they are matched up against one another again. Chookagian won the last fight. How many more does Chookagian have to win, Dom, before the UFC's kind of forced to maybe give her another shot at Valentina, even though nobody's really calling for it?
Yeah, well, that's what's crazy too. She's so active, by the way, which I do respect so much from Caitlin Chikadze.
She was she talked about retiring, I think, back when she lost to Andrade, and now
yeah, I mean, she loses that fight to Valentina, right, for the belt. I think she had a win in there against Antonina Shevchenko right after that, but then she loses Jessica Andrade. But now she's tallied off 2 more in a row. If she wins this, it'd be 3 in a row. She's already number 2. I mean, shit. What are we gonna do? She might earn her way back into a title fight. Again, as Noah mentioned, we're not far removed from the first time this fight happened. It was November of 2019. It's just a little over 2 years ago. Both have had a decent amount of fights since, but in terms of the growth, there's not been much from either. But Caitlin Chikagian has showed me more. She has impressed me more. You know, even in these last 2 performances, I know she gets a ton of decisions. We talked about that on the Nosebleeds. But recently she's shown a willingness to improve her striking with the teep kicks to the body. And, you know, she just looks cleaner and more crisp. And she still has that background in the wrestling and grappling that she can fall back on top of her 5'9" frame, a 68-inch reach. She's bigger than everyone in this division. And for Jennifer Maia, she is that fighter that needs to fall back on that jiu-jitsu. She got into that war with Jessica Ai. Didn't expect it. It was a great fight for what it's worth. But that's not the type of fight you're going to get against Chikagian. If there's someone that uses their reach every time they're in the octagon, it's Chikagian. She is very good at utilizing her reach and range to keep you at bay. So I just think this is another tough fight for Jennifer Maia to potentially get this win back. Can she close the distance? And if she does, Chikagian's also very strong in the clinch. Is she going to be strong enough to get Caitlin down to the ground, hold her there, look for submissions, control the pacing and the top control? I just don't know, man. This is still a very hard fight for Jennifer Maia, in my opinion.
Wow. A lot of breakdown for Chikagian Maia, too.
Who would have thought?
Bill Algeo versus Joe Anderson Brito. This is one, again, going to go under the radar for a lot of people. Brito making his debut, coming off of I'm going to say, decent performance on the Contender Series, but one that impressed Dana White enough that he gave him a contract despite the kind of baggage in that fight where Brito had multiple fouls, his opponent being unable to continue after the last one. It was in like the middle of round 3, so they were forced to go straight to the judges' scorecards and judge the fight immediately. Yeah. Brito gets the win, gets the contract. But the guy's a stud outside the UFC. That's why he's favored here against the 2-2 Bill Algeo. Bill Algeo, not been in a dull fight ever. And I look for similar things here. I look for just a really fun fight. I don't know who's going to win. On the betting show, Bill Algeo was my dog of the week, so I'm leaning Bill Algeo for the experience, and I think that he could easily be 3-1 right now, like just so easily. One of those 2 losses could have went his way, so I think he's got more to offer than maybe most are expecting right now. And for Brito, it's a tough debut to have to go up against a guy that's not just that good. You know, he's only 2-2, but he just the style. He's just very comfortable no matter the circumstances. And, you know, a guy coming off the Contender Series might not be.
Yeah, I feel like going up against a guy like Bill Algeo, if you're his opponent, you have to be willing to go to deep waters. I mean, you look at his fight with Spike Carlisle, you look at his fight with Ricardo Ramos, 2 just absolute dog fight style fights, and Algeo's just so tough. He's well-rounded. You know, he's a great grappler. He's good on the feet. And for Brito here, this is a tough debut fight, one that he's going to have to be willing to really dig deep, get dirty. It could be a fun fight, man.
That's going to wrap it up here for this weekend preview edition of the Below Average Joe's MMA podcast. What say you? Give us your thoughts of all these fights. Let us know who you think is going to win. Any thoughts on all those fight announcements? I mean, that took up the majority of the show.
Yeah, no shit.
18, and then we had 4 on the damn 1X.
22 fights.
So a lot of fights. I hope you guys, were able to keep up with all those. I hope you guys got your money's worth, because we didn't want to keep you here for 3 hours, but we still wanted to give you that quality discussion. But Dominic, until then, I guess we'll be back. So next week.
Back
Monday,
to normal.
Yeah, Monday we'll have the recap. Friday preview for 270. But now I have to throw in there Thursday,
we're
going to have the nosebleeds for UFC 270, the betting breakdown. So be on the lookout for that. Again, go subscribe to the YouTube channel to keep up with that content. If you want to continue listening to us, the podcast that is on Spotify, Apple, please do so. That's great. We love that's where our sponsor's at. So we highly value you audio listeners. But this is just a show that we wanted to expand on the YouTube channel, add a little more content. So any support for the channel would be greatly appreciated. Till then, Dominic, send us out.
Ladies and gentlemen, you can follow me on Twitter, on Instagram, at @dslee14. More importantly, you already know what I'm about to say. Go follow, go engage, go interact with us, with the show, on Twitter, on Instagram, at BAJ_. Remember, there's an underscore in the MMA podcast.
And for me, you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, at @ntbaker_. If you go to my bio, there is a link that will take you to the link tree.
Yep.
Which will present you with a list of links to all the platforms the podcast is on, along with social media platforms. So that includes...
It's not limited to.
It kind of is. Twitter, the Instagram, the YouTube channel, and Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcast. It's all on there. And there's a couple links for today's sponsor, Anchor.
Shout out.
Leaving a voice message. If you are tired of hearing the echo in my room, you can talk shit to me there for 60 seconds. I promise people, the soundproofing's on the way.
It's on the way, yeah.
But also, there's a link on there if you want to become a supporter of the podcast. Any and all support would be appreciated as your two Joes go through life. But until then, that's it. We're out. And we'll see y'all on Monday.